On this episode, we speak with Elle, who has 3 birth experiences in the Osaka region.
It's a very large hospital, so it's probably no frills.
She walks us through each of her births.
Like, we're thinking about C-section. Would that be okay with you? I was like, yes, get this baby out of here.
And explains her recovery postpartum.
I recovered pretty quickly. Even the nurses were surprised. Like, I can't believe you're up already. You're walking? Oh, okay.
Hello and welcome to Birth Stories to Japan. So thank you so much for joining us today. I thought we'd start off with a little bit of an intro.
Oh, sure. My name is Elle. I'm from the United States, Michigan, since it's quite large if you want to be specific. But I've been living in Japan for, about 15 years, since like autumn 2007. So work in Kyoto, but I live in Osaka, so it's kind of right in the center of Kansai. And then since my husband, he's Japanese. He's from a different part of Japan, but I enticed him to come down here. Good call on my part. And worked out. And I've got 3 kids. There's Chihaya, who's 5, Tomoe, who's 3, and Kwan, who's just turned 4 months.
Nice. So what was the journey to pregnancy like for you?
So for the first one, I was really on the fence about having kids, probably on the no kids side, honestly, but my husband really wanted kids. And it came we'd been married for a few years, and he was like, if we're not going to have kids, we need to rethink this. And I was like, uh-oh. So well, we'll see what happens. And then I got pregnant, but I actually didn't realize for about 13 weeks, because I had just gotten off of birth control. So my cycle hadn't come back. And then I just noticed I was feeling really tired for some reason, going to the toilet a lot. That's really strange. And I was going we actually had gone on a 2-year belated honeymoon finally. And I was we were just traveling around Japan. So it was all the local sakes I'm tasting all taste like cheap stuff from the grocery store. This is so strange. And I finally got back. I was like, it couldn't be. I'll just take a test. I got in. Went and got a test, and I took it, and I was like, oh, you're pregnant. But I had I hadn't really been trying to have kids actively, so I didn't know how accurate they were. So I went to the ladies' clinic, and if you've been to the gynecologist in Japan, you're usually when they're doing any exams, in the nether regions, you're on a elevated chair table, and then they've put that curtain.
Yeah.
So you're half in one room and half in the other, right? So I had taken the urine test and in the toilet, given it to the staff, and was waiting, and they called me into the room. I got on the table. They didn't say anything about congratulations, you're pregnant, which is good because it's not congratulations for anybody. I understand that for everyone. It might not feel the same way. But they didn't say, you're pregnant, you're not pregnant. Nothing. Just okay, well, let's do an exam. I'm they're checking. Okay, they're just double checking. They're being really thorough. Get on their table. And all of a sudden they push this monitor, and they're okay, here's the head. Here's their spine. So I'm just shell shocked. It's 13 weeks, so it's a baby. It's small, but it's not a fetus or a zygote. There's a baby. So, that's how I found out, and then just rolled with it, obviously. And my husband was very excited. And I was, once I got used to the idea, I was very, very happy. But it's a little bit of a shock the first visit to the doctor. And they were oh, actually, because it was just a regular ladies' clinic. They're you need to go to a natal clinic where you're already too far along for us to help you here. You got to go find another doctor now. So I had to find him between work and home, and that was quite the
that is an
exciting
amazing story. Yeah,
surprise! It's a baby. Because all of my friends, I have a couple. All my friends who had been trying to have had kids or been trying to have kids, all were having a very difficult time getting pregnant. A lot of them were doing IF, and we're still young, but I had no idea it was so easy. It just happens. Funny that. So we had wanted a girl. I had already picked the name Koan for a girl if I'd ever had one before I even met my husband. But he was a very shy baby. He's not shy anymore, but he was a very shy baby in utero, crossing his legs, turning around. And like, so we didn't find out he was a boy till he was, 27 weeks? So, like, almost halfway through. So then we just went through the process, find a doctor, look at a hospital. But yeah, I had our first, it was the most difficult because, it was the first time we were doing everything. Mm-hmm. And I wanted an epidural because I didn't like the idea of pain. But it was the like old wives' tale here is that you won't feel connected to your baby if you don't feel the pain of childbirth. I'm like, I taught preschool and I really liked like some of my students so much that if like their mom was like, I'm done, can you take this baby home with you? I'd be like, okay, I got a 2-year-old now. They're like, and I would have been fine. Like, I think I can love my child without extreme pain. So I was searching for an epidural, which is really difficult to find. Luckily we're in Osaka. It's pretty urban. So I went around to checking online, see what place had it available. And the Osaka University Hospital is actually pretty close to where we live, and it's their big hospital, and they had it. And we went to we had to go to. It was very odd. We had to go to first an information seminar about epidurals before they would let us elect to have one. So we had to sit in like this conference room. I think one of the doctors and the anesthesiologist, I always trip over that word. Like, explain the process and like the risks and the benefits and blah blah blah. And at the end, they were saying, and congratulations if you're in this room. Up until this point, we only have epidurals from like weekdays from like 9 to 5, but from April this year, we'll be offering them 24/7. I was like, wow, what an amazing accomplishment you've achieved there. Which is really good because my water broke at 1 a.m. So I would have been SOL if they hadn't gone to that. It ended up not really working for me. So like my water broke suddenly. 1 a.m. crawling back into bed, leapt out, didn't get a drop on the bed sheets because I'd gotten up to like go to the toilet, and I just climbed back into bed, and then that ping, like a water balloon effect, is like, pah! I was like, oh, this is what they mean. They say a water burst. Oh, that's exactly what that is. Okay, so I like leapt out of bed, called my husband, who I think was doing like yoga in the living room. He's like, what? He's a night owl. So we were like, call the hospital, call the taxi that we had, arranged, the maternity taxi that you can like have on like semi-standby. Got the like, the picnic sheet so you can put that down on the on the taxi seat so you don't get wet. Go to the hospital. I got in we were at the hospital like by 2. I was probably in the delivery room by 3. I can't, time is kind of really. And thought I had done my research, but I wasn't prepared for whatever was happening here. So they're like, oh, and I go in, they like look at the pad that I've been using to soak everything up. They're like, oh, it's brown. And I was like, that's not normal. Okay, so basically like it was brown because he pooped inside, and that's that's what the color was. So it wasn't the standard turn of events. Usually they don't do that until after they come out. So something was happening. We started off literally with a bang and just trying to get out, and they gave me the epidural. It started off pretty okay. I was like, oh, this is a lot better. And then it just started to wear off gradually. So probably by an hour, 2 hours into it, it was just like, it was doing nothing. So every time my contractions would come, it would hurt so much that I couldn't breathe. And then the oxygen levels for the baby would drop, and they're like, you gotta keep breathing. I'm like, I can't breathe. It hurts so much. Felt bad for my husband because he's a physical therapist. So he had like read up on like what kind of massages to do to ease the pain. And I ended up like, yelling at him that he was terrible at it. So sorry, honey. Hey, doctor! And he's like, I'm sorry. And like, by the time when I got to the hospital, I was, I think they said I was dilated about 4 centimeters. And by like, I think 6 a.m., I'd only gone to 5. And like with the breathing and the oxygen, and So by like 6 a.m. rolls around, I'm in pain and I'm watching like the oxygen monitor and it's very stressful. They're finally like, do you want a C-section? Like, we're thinking about a C-section. Would that be okay with you? I was like, yes, get this baby out of here alive, you know? So like our mantra in our house basically like, oh, thank God for modern medicine. You know, where would we be without it? So eventually they wheeled me up to surgery instead. And I think by like, I was like 8. So yeah, it was 8:29. It ended up being an emergency C-section. So they just, you know, I guess pulled it up. I mean, you're behind a curtain, so I couldn't really see what was going on. But
Yeah.
but I was a C-section baby too. So I had like no real trepidation. I think a lot of people, which is, you know, neither good or bad, just to have like this idea of what they want their birth to be. And I was like, I don't know, I guess I'm rather pragmatic, and my husband is as well, being like already kind of medical, not childbirth, but medical adjacent, you know. So it was like, as long as everybody is alive at the end of the day, it's a good birth. You know, it's kind of how we went into it. So Jay was born on May 24th, 2018, and he was 3,400 grams. And there was that, you know, the stressful period where you're waiting, like, where's the baby crying? And like, it took a while, but he ended up spending like 2 days in the NICU, but he was fine.
And do you know actually how long that labor was?
I think all in all is probably like 6 to 8, probably 6, I would say.
Was your husband able to be there in the room?
For the first one, they wouldn't let him into labor. He was able to the surgery. Like, he waited outside. They don't let, you know, it's kind of gruesome, I imagine. So he was able to wait outside though, and then like come with me back to the maternity ward. You know, walk together afterwards, and he was able to go because I was in no state to do so. He was able to go to the NICU that first day, and like, you know, give milk to the baby, help change the baby. He got to all those first. Well, I was, you know, laying in bed going, ow, you know, trying to like figure out how to, you know, sit up again and things like that. But it's a very large hospital, so it's probably, you know, no frills really, but I really wasn't looking for that personally. I was very grateful though, because like in America, even with a C-section, you're out of the hospital in like 2 or 3 days usually. So just having that extra like 4 days to like lay around and recover and have nurses help you was, you know, invaluable. I couldn't imagine leaving when I could barely walk and then go home and take care of a baby. So
Yeah, nice. And how was that recovery period for you? How did you find it?
I was okay. Guess I am pretty hardy, so I recovered pretty quickly. Like, even the nurses were surprised, like, I can't believe you're up already. You're walking? Oh, okay. You know, I had an easier time of it than most people, and luckily with my first and my second, my husband took, you know, leave as well, because he was at the time he was, you know, doing physical therapy like at a hospital or visiting people's homes, so he took leave so he could be home. He took basically a full year. It was really good timing. With our first, it was like right after Me Too started taking off, even in Japan. So they had a no sexual harassment, no moral harassment, no maternity harassment, like seminar at work right about when I was pregnant. So it's like, I'm actually thinking about taking paternity leave. Yeah, full year. And they're like, well, we can't say no now. We just had a big meeting about it. So,
Oh my gosh,
and
brilliant.
luckily, like, he's very good at his job. He's integral in a way, but it's still like, it's a job where you just have another physical therapist go to that appointment. It's not that he's like, you know, absolutely necessary for, you know, his job to function. But this time around, he's just changed jobs, so he works from home now. It's mostly online, so he can be at home, but he just a couple months before changed jobs, so he's like one of the very few people at his current small startup business. He's like, I can't take off. So I'm a lot less relaxation time this time around, even though he's there to like, you're like, can you change his diaper? I'm in the middle of doing the dishes. You know, it's nice to have that extra hands, but a lot less video game time for me this time around. I have to actually like
the sacrifices you
I have
have
to
to
work.
make. Oh.
Yeah, so privileged, but
Yeah.
like,
Can I ask a question
mhm.
about, did you initially try with Chihaya to breastfeed? Was that in your kind of plan
It
or?
was sort of in like I was kind of if I could, and I breastfed a little bit with each of them because kind of the idea was that especially that first initial breast milk is evidently so important, especially like, transferring antibodies and things like that, and all the good nutrients to the baby. Um, was kind of my goal, but I had actually had a breast reduction when I was 18, so basically and at the time I wasn't really concerned about breastfeeding in the future. And I was like, I would like to live comfortably every day of my life. So I'm going to do that.
Mm,
So I was able to get a little bit, but towards like the end, like even with Chihaya, I tried a little bit harder. Like we ended up getting like a breast pump and things like that. But I've been like, sitting and watching TV, trying to like pump with this like electric pump. And it was like, okay, I've been here for like 30, like over 40 minutes. And I've got like 10 milligrams. I think this is time to give up. It's exclusively breastfeeding was not going to be a possibility. So,
yeah,
and
right.
some people love it and they love feeling a connection to their baby, and it's financially it's great because it's free. But breastfeeding of the baby is never going to feel full from what I could produce. So it's always just like I feel more connected actually bottle feeding because you can like look in their eyes a lot easier, and so
Mm.
I actually just enjoyed that a bit more overall. Maybe because of some sort of lack of breast milk in on my my part, but I guess everybody likes to feels better about different things.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Can we go back to
Hmm.
the beginning of Tomoe now? So, how was getting pregnant with Tomoe for you?
That was kind of we were thinking about having a second. Still wanted a girl, so we just tried to make that happen. We actually like they don't do gender selection in Japan, so we made some like gels that they sell to like change your pH level to
Oh, okay.
tip the odds in one way or another. I don't know how effective they are. Can't say we used it very well because our second one turned out to be a boy, but it seems to have maybe worked with the third one. But kind of much of the same with the first one, just going to routine checkups, and my husband took leave again after the birth. But this time it was a routine scheduled C-section because they usually don't recommend, or you'd have to really fight to try to have a natural delivery after a C-section here, evidently. I was very satisfied with the outcome of my C-section the first time, so I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. So yeah, it's a lot easier to recovery with a scheduled C-section by emergency one, even if just that I wasn't exhausted before it began. And obviously they don't have to rush, and so my recovery was a lot quicker the second time.
Can you take me through that process? So, you booking when it
Mm-hmm.
happened and then what you ended up doing for that day, going into the
So,
hospital?
with the way they have it at the hospital I gave birth in, is like you go to all your checkups up until a week before, and they usually schedule a C-section about 2 weeks before your natural due date, so that you don't go into labor before you know you're supposed to be checking in because that will complicate things. So with Tomoe, they had I guess a couple of more higher risk pregnancies come through. So they actually asked me to change it and move it a day back, which I was fine with, um, or move it a day up or something. I had to move it one way or the other. Yeah, so they have you check in the day before so that you can like they can monitor what you're eating and like stop you having solid food from a certain amount of time, and check up on the baby, check your how your blood pressure and all those things, and then you just kind of wait. And the next day, they kind of gave us a window of time. It'll probably be between here and here. But so my husband was home at the first. It was right during the height of like the beginning of COVID, so he couldn't visit the hospital at all. So they come in that morning though. They're like, we're gonna move it up a little bit to come like how about now? Like, or how about like in an hour? Like, I was like, oh, okay. Very go with the flow, but I was a little, still a little bit like, oh, all right, we could, yeah, that's fine. I'm like trying to like message my husband online, but he's gone off to play at the park with our son. So he was like, by the time I'd gone into like, they were wheeling me out, he hadn't checked his messages yet. So like, and I can't call because I'm in the maternity ward and they don't let you go like make phone calls. So I was like, well, I hope he sees it. Yeah, so Tomoe was born on May 15th, 2020 at 11:52 a.m. And he was 3,376 grams. But yeah, so it was a lot easy recovery towards and there was a little bit of pressure to breastfeed as much as possible. It wasn't too bad, but I think there was different levels of investment between each of the nurses. Sometimes you get somebody who was very gung-ho about it, and I was like, I don't really have much of anything coming out, and especially the lady who had been like, you're not going to wake up 3 times in the middle of the night to go breastfeed your baby. I'm like, I've got a trickle and I've had a C-section. I think sleeping is rather important if you're can watch the baby. I'll have to wake up in the middle of the night plenty of times later on. I'm going to sleep now so I can do that later and be ready. So this me and this nurse came to like loggerheads. So usually like telling me like, oh, if you're not gonna be bothering to breastfeed your baby, we'll have to move you to like a different ward. Like you'll have to leave the maternity ward. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. She like bullied me into it, but now I know like I should have like just stayed the course. Oh, hi. You want to say hello?
Ooh, who do we have here?
He's gonna make her some milk. Hey, yo.
Hi! This must be corn. You said she's 4 months? Is that right?
She's chubby girl.
She is chubby. Oh my god.
Which is strange because they didn't let her check out from the hospital right away. Like she was able to come home with us, but we had to like bring her back in, and she couldn't take off her hospital bracelet for like so it was like half a week. We had to like go back every like 2 days and have her evaluated, and she seems to have recovered just fine.
Yeah, no, she is thriving by the looks of it.
She likes her milk. But this time with her, their baby, the finale, we so went through the same process of trying to have a baby, but they've been told like you can only have up to 3 C-sections. So it's like, oh gosh, if it's not a girl this time, what are we gonna do? I was joking like, if it's another boy, I'm gonna move out. I can't live with 3 boys and a husband. It's like me and the girl cat are gonna move out. But that wasn't necessary, luckily. Yeah. Koan, our third one, we couldn't establish that she was for sure a girl until the last checkup the week before I gave birth. They were like, okay, it's probably a girl. I can't promise anything. So I was like going to labor, or to the scheduled C-section to the surgery. I'm like, when can you tell me? I just want to know at this point. Like, Nicole was born on February 17th, 2023, and she was 3,180 grams.
What gestational week were you for both Tomoe and Koan?
It's about 38 weeks. And give or take a day or 2.
Those are some good weights for being 38 weeks.
Yeah, I thought they were fine. I mean, they seem small when they come out, and you're like, oh, I forgot how tiny the newborns are, But yeah, they were like by standard, especially in Japan. The thing here with trying to keep mothers from gaining too much weight and leading to those very low birth rates. I was like, I'm just gonna have my baby the way I'm gonna do it. I don't know. I just tried to just let everything okay, okay, sure. Mm-hmm. I'll diet while I'm pregnant. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. Bye. She required a smaller nipple on the bottle, like the really small hole, like she couldn't drink quite as well. But once we like figured that out towards the end of our stay in the hospital, like she started drinking a lot better. It was just too much at once for her, I guess. And but once that worked out, then I think we got a little bit like, oh no, we have to make sure we feed her. And she came back with a vengeance. So for Koan, they had me leave the maternity ward like 2 days early. So it must have been the last 2 days. Basically, it was the way the hospital was set up. The maternity ward is like you can't freely enter and exit. You have to buzz in and out, which makes sense. Keep that very safe. But so they sent me to the general ward, which is kind of across the hall on the other side of the day room. So I with another room. There's I think other mothers in the room. So I was kind of under the impression when the nurse had been warning me about it the second time that I was like, oh, only you're getting kicked out. I didn't realize it had been such a standard procedure. I was like, oh no, I'm being punished. But that wasn't the case, as I discovered. Whoops, I freaked out over nothing. But it still was kind of emotionally like, I'm so far away. But yeah, so basically it would be every 3 hours is feeding time. So every 3 hours I would go walk down the hall and buzz in and be like, I'm here to feed my baby. And they'd let me in and go and like get, milk from the nurse's station and go to like this little, feeding room and then feed the baby. And then just spend some time with the baby. And then it was like, okay, well, she fell asleep. And I'm just sitting here in this random room by myself. So I guess I'll just send her back to the nurse's office and be like, see you in 3 hours. But, in all in all, it was, not ideal, but, it is what it is. And we had to spend lots of time together now. So it's, it's fine.
Yeah, nice. So looking at after the birth, do you know how much around about each birth was? Were they all the same or was it different?
The cost?
Yeah.
My husband, I made him do all the financials because I'm really bad with finance. I can get any numbers for you later. I can ask him. We've got the paperwork. But overall with, what we had from the stipend you get from the city because, it's not covered by insurance, but it varies from each municipality, but we ended up luckily with Chihaya because we were supposed to have the epidural, so it ended up being that they didn't charge us because I guess it didn't take, and we ended up having an emergency C-section. I guess some sort of anesthesia. They still have to put you, give you a bunch of pain medication anyway for that. It didn't end up being an extra charge that they gave us, even so that was nice. And I guess because we went with basically a very kind of bare bone, it's very good. It's I felt very comfortable going to the university hospital because it's a big hospital. If anything goes wrong, if my baby has any sort of odd medical need, they'll be able to cover it. So, but it wasn't fancy. I didn't get any fancy post-birth meals, and I didn't get a private room. It was a room with 4 people, and the hospital food was hospital food. It wasn't terrible. Some of the things are good. Some of the things were, but it ended up being pretty much that I had money left over from the stipend from the city, so we were able to use that for other expenses for the baby afterwards. And the other 2 were obviously kind of in the same boat for that. So it was just not a lot, but an extra I think we had an extra Goman in or something about that much left. I'll have to double check because I was all the paperwork. I don't want to deal with that on a good day.
Yeah. I totally understand. Awesome. Thank you for that. So for our last segment, I've got a bottle and it's just filled with some random questions. Oh. So I'm just going to pull one out and ask you one. So, any advice for someone else who's pregnant and living in a foreign country?
Oh, man. I mean, I only know Japan, but I would say, yeah, in my experience, going with the flow really helped. I did have, I found some communities online for mothers in the country that I was in. I would probably, if I was living in Spain or if I was living in, Timbuktu or wherever, I would have probably tried to do the same with something. I could find resources and other people who spoke my language, who had similar experiences that I could, check in. Is this normal? What is it? What should I expect? Knowing other people's stories was really helpful. But also going with the flow. I was in also a couple of, mothers groups from back in my own home country as well. And, it was nice to be able to compare, like, okay, this is what happens there. Well, that's not what happens here. Okay, but I can kind of understand why it's done this way here with the way the system is, and try to understand and not get upset too often when things don't work the way you're used to, but also, when things don't vibe with how you want to do it, kind of ignore it when possible. Like when they would be like, oh, make sure you don't gain too much weight with the baby, for example, is a big thing here. I looked up, because I didn't feel like doing a conversion, so I looked up like what was standard recommendation by the NHS in the UK. So it would be in kilograms. So I was like, okay, they're telling me in Japan I should gain between, I think it was like the limit was between 5 and 10 kilograms. And like the scale for like the recommendation for, in the UK, where it started where the Japanese one started, like gain between 11 and 15 like 10 or 15 kilos or something like that was the recommendation that I found online. I don't know what, it's obviously probably different for each mother too, with like between them and their doctor. But I was like, these scales don't even overlap, and I am probably much more similar to a European standard than a Japanese standard, so I'm just gonna ignore that. And, like I actually had with Chihaya an experience that with my first one, we'd considered going back to my husband's hometown to give birth and having his mom help me. But the doctor at the hospital that we went to look at was so rude that I was like, no, not doing it. And this guy's a jerk. Like he barely I don't know if he wasn't used to looking at foreigners or the whole time he was in there, he barely made eye contact with me. Only talked to my husband. And I speak Japanese, so it wasn't that it was a language barrier. It was just him being a dick. So it's like, I can't like this. If you have bad vibes about a place, look for another. There's no law that says, by your, where your address is, that you have to go to this hospital. That's not the way the system is here. So find a place that you're comfortable with. Like I have a friend who gave birth one time at the hospital I gave birth in, and she personally didn't like their bedside manner, and she went somewhere else for her second, which is completely valid.
That is really good advice. And I was the same. One hospital, we were there up until week 30, and then I ended up moving just because found something better. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, shop around. and a lot of people, I think, will expect, like, they go to one hospital, like, oh, that's the way it is in Japan. I'm like, it might just be the way it is at that clinic or that hospital. Like, I remember seeing, for example, advertisements on, like, a train platform here in Osaka somewhere for, a place that offered water births, if that's something that you'd be interested in, or, like, I didn't, but I know someone who had a home birth here as well. There's, you can do whatever makes you comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we'll finish with one more. Knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Oh, not sure. Like, I think there's like some minor things. Like I'm still. I think I mentioned when we were mailing back and forth that there was the coupon to have a nice dinner at the hospital that I didn't realize what it was the first 2 times, so I missed out on 2 really good hotel dinners level meals. So pay attention if they give you anything extra. Read that stuff. Not quite sure. Like, I do kind of wish we traveled a bit more before we have 3, because that's a lot of kids to lug around. I don't have any major Regrets. But when we bought our apartment, we were not planning on having 3 kids, but we don't want to move. We really like our apartment, but it's quite small. So think about your space.
Which is a big topic in Japan.
Yeah. Like, read up on some tiny house recommendations. I don't know. I'm looking to find if anyone knows a good interior decorator, but not for like posh people, just for people trying to make sense of their space. Please send their name my way.
Oh, yeah.
Do we get a triple bunk bed? What do we do? No.
Oh, that's such a good one. Is there anything else that you want to mention or talk about before we finish?
I would mention one thing. Talk to your husband about taking paternity leave, because we only have 3 kids because he took leave at least the first 2 times, and he's here for the 3rd. I already kind of, I guess it sounds weird, sussed him out. Like I saw how his family interacts with each other. And he has a brother that's 10 years older than him, so I saw how his brother interacts with his own children. So like, oh, he's going to be a good and involved dad. He seems to love kids. He loves playing with his nephews. I'm like, and it's not like some of the things are cultural, like working long hours, etc., is a very Japanese businessman kind of way. But everyone's situation is different. But a lot of things is just, men and the patriarchy, etc. Some men are just incompetent, no matter where you go. They try to be on the same page about, how you want to raise your children, what kind of, how much you want to, where you would like help, being us both off on, paternity leave that first time. My husband was like, this is hard enough with both of us home all the time. I can't imagine how single mothers do it. They need all the awards and all the support. I was like, yes, they do. Yeah. And you're a man, so you should tell all your male friends, because they'll probably listen to you.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. I think you've got a good one, and I'm so happy that you do.
Me too. But I think it's a really nice thing that you're doing. Hopefully my tale will be helpful to someone.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you have such an amazing, positive outlook on it. Just really going with the flow. Whatever happens, happens. And I think that it's so important to hear about it, especially with C-sections, because a lot of people can feel a certain way about C-sections. So thank you so much. And thank you, Kwan. So lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye. So if you'd like to hear more birth stories, please subscribe to this channel. Giving us a like also helps other moms see this video too, so please give us a thumbs up if you can. You can check out the description for more information about bits mentioned in this episode, but if you have any other questions or feedback, please leave a comment below or get in touch. And lastly, if you're a mama that has a story to tell, please send an email to birthstoriesjp@gmail.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.